So hello, bonjour, and thank you for joining this session of the McGill Executive Institute's Level Up webinar series. My name is Eric Sain, Director of the Institute, and it's a pleasure to welcome you. This session is going to last about 1 hour and include time to answer your questions. Although you'll be on mute, you can submit questions by clicking on the chat button at the bottom of your screen. Also, for better viewing, we recommend that you turn off your video image by clicking on Stop Video to the lower left. The session is being recorded and will be shared with you afterwards. So today we're very proud to welcome your webinar leader, Nathalie Francisci. Nathalie is a faculty member of the McGill Executive Institute and a specialist in corporate governance. Joined by her will be Pam Sorrenti, our Director of Public Programs. She's going to be your moderator for today. She's a learning specialist who does all sorts of things, from developing new seminars to giving advice on making impactful learning. So with that, I want to thank you again for attending, and let's get started. Over to you, Nathalie.
Thank you very much, Eric. It's a pleasure for me to have been invited for this session. And I will start the session by asking you maybe a question, all of you there attending to this session is, do you really think we are living now a disruptive time? Or do you think we are living in a disruptive workplace for now?
So good morning, Nathalie. 200%, absolutely, yes. So I think we're definitely on board with the disruptive.
Well, you know, from a crisis to another, I'm not quite sure because, you know, and it's going to be maybe another topic, but these days, when you take a look at the financial market, apparently the financial markets are not so much in a disruptive times, but it's another topic. So just think about it. I would start now this presentation with a little of context, and we're going to switch afterwards into more business case and the exercise for you. But what we have to say, whatever the pandemic or no pandemic, COVID or not COVID, there is a new reality out there in the workplace. And it starts with education and academics. And it starts for those, you know, I wasn't born really in 1969, but anyway, I was close to that. But, you know, at that time when, for some of you recall, you know, explaining these bad grades were really a bad time for you. And in 2020 now, we switch for the teacher, the professor, whatever. For some of you, if you know, rate my teacher, explain these bad grades. It's not on the same shoulders. So it changed a lot in the way that the new generation and in the workplace, a leader, a manager has to behave, has to explain things, as to motivate and inspire his team. And it comes directly from that. So the new dimension of that is now, and even before COVID or before pandemic, or, you know, since 2008, we face different environment. We are, for the past 15, 20 years, more in globalization. Fast decision making is getting faster and faster because we are all connected everywhere. We are connected through laptop, iPads, cell phone, social media also. So we receive so many information, so many news from out there. Whatever they're fake news or not fake news, we have to manage through the unexpected. Because you don't know where the next crisis is going to come. You don't know where the next information is going to be totally at the opposite of the previous one. So every leader, every manager, and I would say also every professional has to learn to be more agile versus I can't control everything. I can't control how many people are writing to me by emails or by email or texting or social media. I can't plan so much because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know where the next competitor is gonna emerge, you know. So I have to build my own credibility. I have to build my own creativity. I have to work around that. And for sure, and you know that for many, many years, it's an ongoing process for change. We are in a changing mode every day, every hour, every minute. So what are the risks for you as professional, again, managers or leaders? Let's face, you know, the top 10 critical risks that we are facing. First one is your reputation. I was talking about social media. It's all about your reputation, especially in a disruptive mode, especially today. We are in the middle of a crisis. It's a pandemic. You can't control everything. You know, even our government can't control so much. So it's all about reputation. What's going to last after that? What the people's going to recall and remind, you know, what was your behavior? Top 10 risk, for sure, there is an economic crisis. We are in the middle of a crisis, but the next one is going to be maybe worse. It's going to be the worst recession after 1930 and 1929. So prediction, we don't know. Again, it's uncertainty, but, you know, it's the worst recession coming in the next maybe months, and maybe it's going to take like 2 years to recover. Fierce competition, it's crisis, it's a disruptive time, so for sure the competition is even fierce than before, because it's and I wouldn't say that, but I will say that it's like a jungle out there. So maybe regulatory changes are going to come. Maybe there is more and more digital terrorism and cyber activity, and it's starting already, you know. And does it block our capacity to innovate, you know? Because before the pandemic, before the crisis, everybody was talking about digital transformation, innovation, innovation, innovation. And now it's the crisis. Are we still talking about innovation, or are we talking about managing the crisis? Do you think we should, or we are stopping innovation? Potentially, yes. Lack of talent. Before the pandemic, it was the war for talent out there. You know, nobody could hire anybody, and trust me, I'm a recruiter, so it was really, really, really hard. But now, do we need some more talent? Do we need different type of talent? So it's a big risk. If I'm losing my talent today, I'm not going to be able to recover from that tomorrow potentially, because people's going to change their mind in the way you are managing this crisis. Business shut down. As you know, a lot of business, unfortunately, is going to shut down, and we don't know if they're going to be able to, you know, perform again or recover. It's totally uncertainty, and we don't know what the politics and the government's going to do about, you know, all those changes. And I'm quite sure they are not sure yet what they're going to do. So the last one is the stakeholder responsibility, and from all this presentation, what I'm going to talk about is all your environment, your context, and the stakeholder. It's very important. So let's quickly, you know, a couple of, you know, items, very interesting. This is a study conducted by Odgers, my firm, I disclose, but with Harvard, the Harvard Business Review, about, you know, the top driver of disruption. And the problem is, when you see those charts, and you're going to have the presentation and access to the study if you want, but when you see changing employee expectation, you know, what's happening after or in the middle of the crisis is we are changing employee expectation. People on your employee, or people in general, in the middle of crisis, set the expectation for their leaders or their manager or their companies much higher, because I need you, I need the company, I need to work, I need my job. So they are, you know, the level of the trust and the credibility that they put into the organization is changing. And this is a top driver for the disruption, because if they don't, they are not fully engaged and they don't think that you're going to survive or you're going to manage and lead this crisis effectively, they won't trust you anymore. So according to me, it's a big disruption. Same thing for your customer. Your customer are looking at you, the way you are managing the crisis, the way you are leading the crisis. Same thing. Maybe they don't have the choice to stay with you for a while during the crisis, but just right after the crisis, they're going to change maybe their mind, because they just see you acting, they see you behave with your employee also, very important. So it's another top driver for disruption. And for sure, the stakeholder, the advance in technology, so many other things. But remember those two items: your customer, your employee, and the rest of the stakeholder. Stakeholder can be maybe your shareholders, can be the unions, can be the government, etc. So very interesting. And we asked that question before the pandemic. And it's a little bit scary. So think about it a minute. Only 50% of senior management express confidence in their leadership regarding the ability to drive the change, that just to have the required skill, the right mindset. Mindset, we are talking here about culture, the culture of the company, and the right value. So, and the last one is very interesting. You know, when you are hiring, you know, a manager, a leader, the first thing that you should know is this person is a talent magnet? Is this person going to be able to attract and to retain the talent, whatever it's going to be after pandemic or before pandemic? So the talent magnet is very important. And when you take a look on the result, it's scary, because only 50% of senior management have confidence in that. Very interesting. When you ask, you know, the worried company versus the confident company, and I will go very quickly on this one because it's a little bit complicated, but just to let you know, if you're working in a worried, if you are working in a worried organization, so this organization won't be able to drive the crisis, won't have the courage to face reality and to take, you know, maybe difficult decision, you know, with humanity and compassion. So you have to figure out, am I working in a worried company or a confident company? A confident company with trust in her ability, in her management, is going to go through this crisis very smoothly, much more smoothly than another one. So build on trust. So how can I do that? I'm a professional, I'm a manager, I'm a leader, especially if I'm a leader, you know. The thing is, you've been hearing for maybe a couple of years now, especially if you're working in IT, about agile leadership, agile management. This is a trend, you know, it's very interesting, you know, trending words and fashion in management. But we are all talking about agile leadership. But what is exactly agile leadership? You know, it's the main difference between a control leadership, you know, a leader, a manager who is always in control of everything, versus another manager who's not in control, but is controlling, you know, the operation or the forecast or everything, but is more agile. So is able to adapt to his environment. So basically what it is. An agile leadership, especially, and I will reinforce that again right after this slide, is in disruptive times, crisis management, an agile leadership must be, you know, building on his people, his employee, his partners, his stakeholder, his or her stakeholder. So it's the voluntary participation. And this is the first thing. I'm not forcing you to work for me. You are working with me because you want to work with me. This is the big difference. So imagine tomorrow, let's say tomorrow, after COVID, I have to go back to work. Do I really want to go back to work? These days, what I'm hearing, you know, from surveys, statistics, or, you know, just the market, the people I'm talking to, people don't want to go back to work, but they will come back just for you. That's the difference. So it's voluntary participation. This is an agile leadership. It's all about building relationship. It's all about integrate, because we are humans. So I'm not just the manager or the leader in control. I'm not a dictator, you know. It's just about being more human, being more close to those people, and mix the personal and the business. And you know, the big I would say good thing about this crisis is we mix personal now and professional, because now you can see I'm in my office, I'm in my home, and maybe I'm talking to you, and you have your cat, you know, or your dog or your kids around, and maybe they're gonna come, you're in a Zoom meeting, Teams meeting, and they're gonna come through the camera saying, hey, hello, who is this person you're talking to, mama? Who is this person you're talking to, dad? So it brings, you know, more personal, and we have to build on that, because, you know, we are all humans, and it's very important that you think about that factor. And it's more asking people to do things than invite people to do things. It's all about sharing your knowledge, sharing your feelings, then sharing the material. Sharing, you know, the presentation, sharing the stat, the survey. Oh, I sent to you and I copy, you know, 10 people about the presentation I made. It's like 300 pages. It's not about that. It's just listening to people and sharing your expertise. Maybe just by phone, by chat, not sometimes always by material. Because how many emails do you receive a day? How many emails do you receive a day? Sharing with you some documentation, some materials, some spreadsheet, or some Word or PDF document. How many? So it's too much. So at the end of the day, the difference with an agile leadership is just focus on one thing, and one thing that really counts for the people. So the 4 major traps in a disruptive workplace. So we went to agile leadership very quickly. I have to tell that, you know, what are the 4 major traps? It's a narrow view. So I'm so focused, I don't see, you know, the blind side. I don't see the other angle. I'm not listening to your perspective. The way we could try to address that trap, because it's a big trap, is it's to build your stakeholder map, and we're going to build one together afterwards. Okay, so just start thinking about, well, how many people around me influence my business or my decision or my work, even, you know, my colleague, my supervisor, my boss, my clients, I don't know, the government maybe. So think about it. As soon as you're going to open that and build your stakeholder map, you're going to have, or be able to have, a much wider view. Second thing, you're not leading the crisis, you're managing the crisis. So you're just focusing on now. And I know it's an emergency. I know you have to take some decision. I know there is a lot of things coming right now at the present moment. But just take a moment, take a deep breath, and see, nothing's going to last forever. Nothing lasts in life anyway, even relationship. So what's the next step? We have to think about our future. I know we are in the middle of the crisis and we are struggling, maybe we are suffering. Okay, so look at that, but also focus on the future. Focus on the next step. What should we do to get out of there? Or what should we do to rebuild the situation tomorrow? Maybe we should start a new business. Think about the mask. You know the company, Shan, you know, with the swimming costume, they start, you know, just at the early beginning of the pandemic to start building, you know, customizing some masks. So maybe there is an opportunity there. Also, control versus adaptation. The more you are trying to control in a crisis mode, the more you are trying to say everything is fixed, you know, I'm managing everything, the worse it's going to be, because you can't control a crisis. You're just trying to navigate in a crisis. You have to adapt. You have to build or enhance your flexibility. This is the way to be agile, absolutely. And the last thing is, unfortunately, sometimes in a major crisis, in a disruptive workplace like the pandemic or the financial crisis in a way or whatever, we just forgot the human factor. We just forgot the people. We just said to the people, well, we have to do some layoffs, and I'm really sorry, and I'm really sorry that I have to let you go. But just remember, we are talking about humans. So the way you are doing things, and I'm not telling you that you don't have to take your responsibility and to do some maybe difficult choices to save the company. For sure, you have to save the company. But the way you are communicating, the way you are doing this stuff is different. So I won't go too much into details into that, but use storytelling as an example. Let's say that you have to do some layoff. It's so difficult, and you have to navigate in that, because maybe you will need those people tomorrow. Imagine, you know, it's temporary layoff, and maybe in 1 month, or maybe in 2 months, or in 2 weeks, you're going to need those people. Imagine the way you are managing that. So use the storytelling. The storytelling is not saying to the people, well, it's difficult times, I'm really sorry, I have to let you go, it's temporary, keep in touch. Okay, I'm really sorry. It's a very difficult decision for me to say that to you. The storytelling is, I know your feeling. I know how do you feel. I've been laid off maybe sometimes in my life. I lost my job myself. So I know what you're feeling. And I know it's hard, but I will be there for you, listening to you. I have to do that today, but I want to keep in touch with you. And trust me, I will do everything in my power to bring you back. The difference between the one example and the second example is you have to be sincere. You have to show and demonstrate real empathy. If you don't have it, please don't talk to the people and make somebody do the exercise at your place. So the best leaders, according to me, the best leaders, and we are sharing some, I guess, some links after the presentation and some surveys, but the best leader navigates in crisis very skillfully. They are inspiring people, they are energizing the organization because they are thinking about the future. So it's not just having, you know, we are not living in a you know, Alice in Wonderland, I would say, world, but just be realistic, but optimistic and positive, and build around those positive energy to inspire your people. So that's the main thing. So now, case number one, I was talking earlier about build your stakeholder map. So what is a stakeholder map? We start very briefly, but a stakeholder map is around you. You have a lot of, you know, powerful resources. Let's say evidence, your boss, your colleague, your employee, maybe the union if you are working in a company with a union, but you have investors, and you have the government, you have so many, you have suppliers, so many people or organization or forces around you. Make that list. What's yours? Make your list. So let's say I'm me, I'm Nathalie, or I'm Richard, I'm Julie. So am I working in a publicly listed corporation? Am I working with a private only corporation? Am I working for an hospital, for a university, for the government itself? So depending on the company you are working with, you're going to have a different map. But for sure, you're going to have a boss, you're going to have colleagues, employee, potentially employee. But what else? Customer, maybe communities, maybe, so I said unions, maybe what? Maybe people around you, but you're not sure. Maybe the social media. So it's the society. So this is, you know, the political influence that may be going to drive some comments or not. So think about that and build, and it's very important, and maybe you're going to do that, you know, for sure after this presentation, but start to build your own stakeholder map. Any question at that point?
We'll just give people a quick second. Sometimes it lags. Okay, so families should be considered as stakeholders as well. They influence our decisions, so they have to be part of the model. Good point.
Can you repeat just the last one? I'm sorry, Pamela.
Sorry, so families should be considered stakeholders as well. They influence our decisions, so they have to be part of the model.
Absolutely. And you know, you have different type of families, you know, sometimes you have family driven, you know, it's like, you know, it's like a meute de loup, presque. So I'm very protective. So, but you have friends also. So you have family, you have your friends, and you have your roommate, maybe, I don't know, depending of your status. But for sure, family is very important because it's all about values, depending the origin of your country. And you know, this is the most also important thing. We are living in Montreal, in Canada, with a so diverse, you know, platform of, you know, different type of cultural background, ethical background, etc. So we have to pay attention to that. Imagine I'm French from Paris. I've been in Montreal for the past 25 years, but still I'm sometimes some words, some behaviors doesn't resonate the same to me. So yes, absolutely, it's a part of the stakeholder map.
Perfect. And what about environment? Do you include environment? That's a question.
Well, with environment and potentially I'm hearing ecology or etc. Okay, it's all about communities. Let's say I'm working for an energy company. Okay, so for sure the community, you know, it's not, I can't control the community, but if I want to install an hydro central or solar wind or whatever, okay, I have to work with those communities because the impact is going to be huge. If they don't want my solar system on their field, what do I do?
Right.
What do I do? So the environment, of course, is very important, but ecology, environment is always related also to values. So the new generation are so, let's say you have a team of young people, let's say in the 25 or, you know, late 20s, and you're printing paper like every day, big reports, and you are printing and printing and printing. What do you think those people, your employee, is going to think about you? You're wasting energy, you're not a good manager, and whatever you're going to tell them right after, they won't trust you anymore because you are throwing like 1,000 pages of paper away. So for sure, yeah, it's a part of, but you have to think about how do you integrate that in your day-to-day management.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. Oh, so Patrick is giving another comment, and he was saying, I was thinking more the environment that you live and work. So, and there's another comment about, you know, working so closely with your husband so you can manage your work, but then managing your relationships is different. So is the stakeholder map, does it change depending on your context or your environment where you are?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very interesting because I worked with my past husband for many, many years. We were working together, so I know the feeling. So it was on my stakeholder map because, you know, you're a colleague or maybe your co-workers, let's say, or co-shareholders. But as soon as you're getting home, who is the boss? Okay, so it's the part of for sure it's a part of the stakeholder map, and the context is very important. Let's say I'm working, even, you know, let's think about a big building, you know, versus a small company in the South Shore. It's different. Maybe I'm working from home, maybe I'm working in a small house. So for sure it's going to have an impact, but the stakeholder and the context going to impact that, but the map won't be affected by that.
Okay. With so many stakeholders, how do you prioritize which ones are more important than others?
That's a very good question. The first question is, if this stakeholder disappeared tomorrow, does it affect me tomorrow? What about in 2 months? What about if this stakeholder is transforming to something else? What about if this stakeholder is partnering with another one? Okay, so the impact is, you have to think about now, does it have an impact on me right now? Mm-hmm. But what about in 2 months? What about, let's say, the government doesn't have any impact on me today. Yeah, but if they change the regulation and the next maybe vote's going to be in October, maybe in October that they're going to have an impact. So you have to make the difference to evaluate or assess the now versus the future. Mm-hmm. Does this person have an impact on me right now or in the future?
So that short-term versus long-term.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, I think that's all the
so
questions.
You have, I'm sorry, Pam, but you have a couple of questions, and I know the time's fly, but the timing is very important, and the investment also, the impact on your financials.
Okay.
Personal or business or whatever, you know, what is the impact?
Okay, so you have to think very clearly about the impact when you're building your stakeholder map.
Absolutely.
One more question. If you run a firm with your spouse, how do you classify them? Fellow employee or spouse?
If I run what?
Like you were saying earlier, you ran a company with your husband. So with your spouse, how do you classify them? What kind of, is it your family or is it a coworker?
Well, depending the period of the day. So the problem, it's very tricky. It's exactly the same thing when you are lending money to your friend, to your brother, to maybe your partner. It's always the same thing, because you are looking at him or looking at her. Well, you're my spouse, or my husband, or my wife, or my brother, or my daughter, maybe, or my son. So it's very, I think it's much more difficult to manage the relationship, but you have to manage it as it's not personal, it's a business. Let's say I'm lending you some money, okay? And you're my sister. Okay, I love you, and you're stuck with me forever, because I just have one sister or maybe two sisters, but you know, you're stuck with me, but I'm lending you this money. I love you, I want to help you, but you know, you don't have to mix your feelings and the link between this person and you. It's a transaction, and you have to get out of the emotional and just to do the transaction, which is absolutely very difficult when you are dealing with relatives. But you have to do that, because if not, you know, you're stuck.
And maybe if you're not comfortable, you don't lend the money.
Yeah, but it's very difficult to say no. It takes a lot of maturity and courage to say no to your, let's say, brother, sister, or father. Maybe your father needs some help. Or if you give the money, you don't lend the money. You just donated the money, and you never regret. This is the difference. So it's not a transaction anymore.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good question, by the way. So case number 2, so you have the picture of the stakeholder map, but now what is very important is to navigate with this stakeholder map and build your credibility. And I think, according to me, I like the cube because, you know, it takes the whole dimension to make it work. So you need the 4 dimension to enhance your credibility or to room your credibility. First, we start with the base, and the basic is very simple. You know, it's the academic, my skills. Let's say we are in the workplace environment. So what are my academics? I have a bachelor, a master, I have a PhD, whatever. So what are my skills and what are my values? So it's like basics and quantitative, and the values, it's non-negotiable. Where do I come from? Where do you come from? Are you coming from a poor family based with special values, you know, of generosity, or maybe a poor family, but it was like, you know, a war, maybe? Or are you coming from a very wealthy family and you never had to think about, you know, saving money, or you can spend the money the way you want? So the relationship to authority, to finance, I would say, is very important there. So you have to face that and to see, what are my values? You know, where do I come from? And this is my background. So this is the base, and you're gonna start, it's like a house. So these are the fundamentals. After that, you have to elevate yourself, okay? Do I have the self-confidence? How I communicate, how I interact with people. Do I have the courage to say certain things, or generally I'm hiding my emotion, or I'm hiding the information? So the way the hates is really to demonstrate to people the way you are saying things, what you think, what is important, and how you differentiate that. The depth is afterwards, is how you demonstrate results, how do you bring value. Let's say I'm in a meeting with you, and we have an interaction, we have a discussion, whatever, or we have a board meeting, or we have an executive meeting. At the end of the day, you should ask yourself, at the end of the meeting, what kind of added value I bring in that meeting, you know? What was my real contribution? Was I just the meeting because I had to attend that meeting, and you know, very easy with Zoom, you know, you just have to switch your video or unmute or mute yourself, and it's easy. I was there, but I didn't bring any value. So the depth of the credibility and your cube is, I have to show results, but I have to bring added value. And sometimes it's different. It's not about numbers all the time, but just an idea that you bring to the table. So if you are doing that, it means that you are fully engaged, because you want to contribute. You want to demonstrate that you are making a difference into this meeting or into the company. And for sure, at the end, it's all about timing, okay? So if I'm this compassion and empathic person, let's say the agile leader today, and tomorrow I'm hit by a crisis, I won't change. I'm still going to be this empathic leader, agile leader. I won't change and turn into a control freak leader. So you have to think about it. We are not actors, and the young generation can see clearly into your cards. So you have to be consistent all the time. You have a certain style, and you have to admit it. Maybe I'm more introvert. Let's say I'm introvert. Okay, fine. I won't become a social animal, okay? But I have to build and to navigate into that. So I can't be extrovert and a social animal in good times and switching into introvert in bad times. See what I mean? Any question? I can put the cube back if you want.
Yeah, maybe that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think so. So any question?
Great. I had one from before while we're waiting on people to reflect on this cube. What are some of the ways you can evaluate and decide stakeholders? Meaning, like, how do you decide which ones to engage with versus those to monitor?
Well, it changes from time to time, you know, so depending on the context, depending if you're in a crisis or not in a crisis, you have to work around different type of stakeholders for sure, you know. So maybe today you have to work more with, let's say, as an example, with unions, because we are all trying to save jobs. Okay, but maybe since in 6 months you're going to face another story because you have to renegotiate maybe. So depending on the context or depending of the objective, you have to work around those stakeholders. But what you have to do is sometimes just monitor them, and because you don't have any, let's say sometimes the government or the regulator, well, you're not interacting with them day to day, but you just have to be careful and monitor them to see, okay, what's going on, and are they preparing something? So maybe I need to talk to a lawyer, maybe a friend of mine or a lawyer, just to see what's coming on.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so one question here is, once you've established credibility, how do you communicate that to your customers specifically?
What is very interesting is when you have the idea of, you know what are your strengths to demonstrate your credibility, you're just acting. So it's not you saying I'm credible, it's the people telling you or telling the community that they trust you and you have the credibility. The problem is you can't control the credibility. I can't say, well, I'm very credible because, as an example, because I have a PhD or a master or whatever. Well, you can have a master in whatever, or you can be an engineer or a super top financial guy. You have no credibility to me. So it's the people who are, or your community or the environment, the people decide for you. That's the tricky part. That's the reason you have to demonstrate credibility over time, and to maintain your values, to maintain, the thing that you want to demonstrate. As an example, somebody with specific expertise. If this person never communicate or share articles or give some speeches, or even, communicate internally to share her expertise, how can I say, or how can I know that she's got it?
Right. So it's really about maintaining those relationships.
It's an everyday, every minute work.
Right.
And in, directing and in your behavior also.
Right. Your values and how you reflect those in your actions.
Absolutely.
So, and a follow-on question to that fits nicely is that sometimes under stress we can act differently. And how do we explain this and adjust to the needs of our stakeholders if we're not in perhaps the best mindset ourselves?
So let's say, if I understand the question correctly, let's say I'm very stressed because, I'm facing difficult times. How can I communicate that and then, deal with my stakeholder?
That's right. Or
my boss or whatever, just by saying it. My answer is just by saying it. Vulnerability, interesting things. When you're a very good leader and you're good at that, or manager, whatever, you can say to your people, I'm stressed, or I'm worried, or I'm anxious, and I don't know how can I do that, but I need you to do it. So just accepting that you don't have all the answer, or maybe you're worried about the future, but I trust you, and we're going to pass through this together, and I need you.
Transparency.
And on this topic, I encourage you to read or to see some maybe YouTubes or anything onward, about how Starbucks go through the crisis and reinvent themselves. They had a major crisis a couple of years ago, and the way that the chairman explained that, it's very interesting. He could have said, well, it's very difficult times and we have to do some layoff and blah blah blah, and he said to a very I share it, I guess, Pamela, the
Yes.
you know, the link. But he started the big conference in front of I don't remember, but 10,000 or 12,000 people, participant employees, saying he start by saying, "I'm sorry, I apologize, we messed up." So you know, he didn't say, "Well, it's our time," blah, blah. He just say, "I'm sorry, we messed up."
It takes a lot of courage.
Absolutely. So it goes back to the cubes, to the eights, you know, self-confidence. I have the confidence, I did the best I could, but I failed. And sometimes we fail. But the way you are communicating that and the way you are demonstrating real courage in saying that and admitting that, you know, you didn't take the good decision. This gonna enhance your credibility from 0 to 100%.
Right. That makes sense. There's a lot of questions here regarding balancing. So balancing consistency and adaptability, balancing your credibility versus how do you take risks while trying to, you know, maintain your credibility. Do you have any suggestions or ideas and thoughts on that?
Well, balancing is the potentially the hardest thing to do and to find. You know, you have to find your own path through, you know, the time you are facing, through the person you are. Okay, but you know, credibility is directly linked to your values. So never change that. Or admit it. I'm the person that I am. Let's say, you know, I'm totally transparent. I'm the type of person always saying, or the tendency to always say the things as they are with no, you know, no decorum. Okay, this is the way I am. Okay, I can't change, I can adapt, but I will stay the same. So I have to build on that. So the good thing is when you are coming to me, you're gonna always have the right answer or the answer, even if you don't like it. I'm like this. So maybe the balance is to find ideally a way to be surrounded by people who balance that. Maybe I can't, you know, I can't change. Okay, I'm the person that I am. But if I create my team or even my, you know, with my inner circle, with my friends, so you can balance you by be surrounded by different type of people. And this is diversity. This is exactly all about diversity and what we are talking about in our organization.
And I assume that starts with a strong self-awareness, right? You cannot balance the people around you unless you are self-aware enough to know what you need balancing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, you have that sometimes, you know, in some organization. You have the good cup and the bad cup. It's very easy to say that, but you know, this is a good way to balance, you know, at the end, just to be neutral.
Okay. And just one last question: how do you deal with a situation where your team members they think that you're dictating rather than consulting? So you're trying to be there from a consulting approach, but the members of your team really feel as though you're being very directive.
I would trust the team. So I would say that you're trying to act as a consulting or, you know, searching for advice maybe, or listening to your team. But the thing is, you're not. Trust the people around you. If, you know, if the person in front of you is feeling that I'm controlling the you know, the decision, you know, I'm listening to you, I'm asking you, what's your point of view on that? But it's clearly not the case. So the problem is you have to change the way, or you are just to open yourself to say, maybe they're going to come with something I don't want to hear. Maybe they're going to come with another suggestion that I don't want to hear about that. So if you are asking the people around you, what do you think? Or I need your ideas, just be open and welcome the ideas.
From that feedback.
Really.
Harder, easier said than done.
Oh, it's very easy,
Yeah.
you know, and I've been working, you know, myself on that for many, many years because, you know, personally, I have a tendency, as an example, when I was quite young, early stage in my career, to see what should we do, and it was sometimes the good thing to do, but it's not about that. It's just about, you know, inspiring and engaging the people in this process.
Mm-hmm. Makes a lot of
You know,
sense.
we know that women, we are always right, you know,
Of
but
course.
sometimes we need to, yeah, sometimes we need to work differently with our spouse or partners to just say, well, maybe I'm right, but maybe you're right. So maybe we agree together that we disagree.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Balance.
Balance.
One of our participants just said, laugh out loud, I have a wife and 3 girls. So good luck to you, Patrick.
You have all my compassion.
Yeah, same.
And
same.
you know, in my house, even the cat is a dirty girl, so it's terrible.
Yeah, I have 2 girls as well, so my husband is in the same boat. One last question before we move on. This question says, I worked at Nike in France, and if you spoke the truth to your boss, you were sacked or you were fired. So how do you manage an environment where, you know, you want to be truthful, but you can't because you'll risk losing your job?
Absolutely. And this is a fabulous question because it all brings back to the values. It all brings back to the context. So if you are working in France, you are working in, let's say in Europe, in Asia, in Singapore or in Hong Kong, in China, versus you are working in New York or in Montreal, for sure, you're not managing the employee the same way. You're not managing your boss the same way. So you have to ask you this question: am I happy working in this context or this company or this environment? But there is always a way to bring your ideas on a smooth way. You know, I've been working in France, in Paris, in my early stage of my career, and I decided to leave France for this reason, because I prefer to work in North America. But if let's say I stayed there, maybe the way to make it work is to find a way to bring your point, but maybe it's going to take longer. It's going to take a different approach. It's going to take a couple of meetings, maybe more meetings than in Montreal. I would say that in 2 meetings in Montreal, you're done. Okay, let's say maybe it's going to take like 10 meetings in Paris to be done. So you just have to adapt yourself.
You have to manage that.
And find some allies. Don't forget that. Find some allies. You're not alone.
That's it. Okay, so in the interest of time, we'll just, I think we'll move forward, but we'll have another question period shortly.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So we covered that, you know, it's all about influence, I'm sorry, and you know, the way to make it work and the way to make your cube work is to bring the cube with your stakeholder map and to work around all the influence. And the influence, sometimes, to put a word on it, is political sense. And it's not playing bad games. It's not bad to have a very good political sense. It's all about the influence. Okay, so when I was talking just a few minutes ago about find your allies, it's very important, because you're not alone and you can't make it work, or you can't influence or navigate alone. You need some allies with you, maybe in your stakeholder, maybe with your colleagues somewhere. So let's go back to credibility, legitimacy, and trust. Credibility, the fundamentals are the trust. So the trust that the people put in you, you know, so the more the trust you're going to have from your stakeholder, whatever, the more you're going to appear credible. So I'm invited you now to build your own credibility index. It's very easy, by the way. Just think about it. The credibility that you think that you have, okay? Are you reliable? So the reliability, I'm sorry, that the people put in you and you demonstrate also, and the intimacy. So you add those 3 items, those 3 components, and you divide that by your self-orientation. The more you're selfish, the more you're oriented to only your needs, your own needs, the worse you're going to appear and the worse you're going to be credible, because the worse people's going to trust you. If I feel that if I'm dealing with you or if I'm interacting with you, your only purpose is to fulfill your needs, the rest is history, and the rest gonna totally be shut down. So for sure, you're not Mère Teresa, or you're not, okay. But we all have an interest somewhere, for sure, because I want to sell you maybe something, or I want to have that promotion, okay? But, at the end of the day, it's all about what's in it for me. And if the answer is only just, I'm running for myself, I don't care, whatever it is, it's me, myself, and I, and the person in front of you, or the group in front of you, thinks or feels that it's only me, myself, and I, you will lose the game, absolutely. So think about it. And it's very important. You can work around that. So let's go deeper into that. So the trust index component, there is 4 things that you can be able to work around just to enhance this trust and working on your self-awareness. It's all about familiarity, accessibility, proximity, and human relation. Let's take a product, very, very easy, or a trademark. Let's say you have a couple of examples over there. McDonald's. Okay. Do you trust McDonald's? There was a lot of people out there who trust McDonald's year after year. Why? It's familiar. How many stores do you have of McDonald's? Every corner. Starbucks is the same thing, as an example, okay? So it's so familiar. Another example, Jean Coutu, Shopper Drug Mart. It's so familiar. You have a store every corner, every I don't know, like 15 meters. Okay, is it accessible? Okay, is it very easy? I can go in very easily. Okay, so it could be also a software. It could be a service. Amazon, as an example, is very familiar. It's everywhere, and they knock on my door every 2 seconds these days, especially if you have young kids, or, well, young kids no, but teenager or young adults at home. So it's very familiar because I can see the logo everywhere, every minute, okay? And I just have to click on my computer to order whatever I want. So the proximity like intimacy. So it's close to me. It's in my life every day. Okay, and human relation also, it's very, very important. Even if we don't have so much human relation these days because it's the COVID or whatever, I can chat, I can talk to you, and I can have a Zoom with you, a team meeting with you. So you need, and you must, I would say, have the human touch. So you have to work around those 4 items. And let's say, go back to my example with the person more introvert. So I'm more introvert, and the human relation for me, it's a little bit difficult because maybe I'm too shy, or let's say I'm too shy. I'm not comfortable in front of a lot of people. So for me, it's very difficult to build on that component, human relation. But what I can do to enhance the familiarity and the accessibility, maybe I will focus just on a couple of persons around me, okay? So maybe I'm not a social animal, so I won't have 10,000 people or 10 people around me, but I will focus on specific person. I'm gonna build this relation with them with proximity, accessibility, and familiarity. Same thing if I'm a social animal. Let's say I'm a social animal. I'm talking to everybody all the time. I have no problem going to a room and talking to everybody. But Is it too superficial? Should I work maybe around more my familiarity or my proximity? You know, or you can talk to me whenever you want. My door is always open, okay? But each time I'm trying to come in your office, you're looking at me with this eye saying, well, I'm busy, don't, you know, come back later. So you have to work around those components, especially in disruptive time and in a crisis, because it's very fragile. So you have to work with your cube and you know, your capacity around those 4 dimensions. But I would say that the human relation sometimes it's hard because we are like we are. But think about the familiarity. The more familiar you're going to become with your team or your mate or whatever, the more trust they're going to put in you and the more credibility you're going to have. Absolutely. It's a question of, you know, having in front of their eyes all the time, you saying something, having a coffee together, having a quick chat together, just saying hello sometimes, and just for nothing sometimes. Just, I'm talking to you, you know, let's say we are in the middle of the crisis and I'm trying to sell you some product or some services. For sure, I'm calling you because this is my job to do some business development. But if I'm calling you saying, well, hi, how are you? Just wanted to say hello. It's different than, hi, how are you? Do you think you're going to have a contract for me soon? This is totally different. Question?
So we're actually at time, Nathalie.
And we are done already.
Yes, exactly. I was going to say this is the end. I'm just going to wait 1 or 2 seconds to see if there's any, you know, last minute questions that come. But I think that it was really clear. We really touched on the credibility during the previous question period. So I think it's good.
Okay,
right.
So I will try to end up with a couple of stats, but you know, I think this one is the most important, the employee trust. So don't forget that even if you're not the big leader of your company, maybe just a professional or a manager, the trust that, you know, investing in your employee, investing in your stakeholder is the best investment that you can do, okay? And the way you are treating people is the most important thing. It's not what you are telling them, it's the way they are feeling. And this is, you know, the way I would end up this presentation is don't make them like, you know, it's not saying because I love you that I love you. It's the way that the person's going to receive the message. So the way she's going to feel that I really love you. This is the main difference. And because I like Warren Buffett, you know, and I think this quote, you know, for a capitalism person, you know, very big investors and sometimes perceived as not, you know, with no heart, it was telling that, you know, in some of his presentation one day, I measure success by how many people love me. So think about it and work on that, and you have to carry for your people. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nathalie. I know that we're over time, so all the content has gone through. We do have one question, though, that if we could, you know, perhaps give a 30-second answer to. The question is, there was a survey that was done recently that stated that only 8% of employees feel closer to their boss since the shutdown started. What do you feel has led to such a low score? Are supervisors just not relating to their employees right now?
You know what, and it's not my thinking, but this is a fact. Because now with the COVID and the pandemic, people are just focusing on the now, not the future. And when we're saying like controlling versus leading, it's all about that. So it's just transactional sometimes for some employees. I'm talking to you through Zoom or Teams just to talk about the process or this file or this situation. But I'm not talking to you saying, well, hi, how are you? Could we have a coffee, a virtual coffee together? Or let's start the conversation by how is everybody's around this virtual meeting? Mm-hmm. So this is the reason that people don't feel that, you know, people care or their boss care.
Right.
So it's just switching, and you know, sometimes they don't do it on purpose. You know, people are not bad, you know, they just forget. They just forget, go back to this presentation, they just forget the human factor.
Right. It's easy to forget it when you're looking at a computer all day long.
Yeah, because I'm in a rush and I have this Zoom at 11, I have another Zoom at 11:30, and I have a Teams, and my kids are, so I don't have time to social or whatever. Yeah, but just take a couple of sec. It changed totally, dramatically the conversation and the way the person's going to feel at the end of this session.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Nathalie, and thank you
much.
for everyone who joined to make this session a success. It was a pleasure to work with you, Nathalie, and I know a lot of the participants all appreciated the takeaways from this session. So with that, everyone who's still on the line, you will be receiving an email from us with the recording of the session and some of the takeaway tools to build out your stakeholder map. You'll also be receiving a survey from us that we would really appreciate if you could complete. It just helps us to refine the sessions for the future and find out what topics you want to hear about. So we'd love to stay connected. Certainly follow us on LinkedIn, join our mailing list. Our next session will be next Wednesday, May 27th, with Tamara and Miriam Carver, who will be walking us through a framework for difficult conversations. So that'll be really important and a nice complement to this session as well. So with that, thank you again. Thank you, Nathalie. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and have a great day.
Have a good day. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.